We have Deb Drummond and Caroline Blanchard. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Can you share with the Cashflow Connect community a little bit about yourselves? Maybe start with Deb.
Sure. Well, what can I say about myself? A woman in Vancouver, live in Canada, love Canada, have two great children. Just about to have my daughter have a daughter. So it continues. Wow. Been an entrepreneur since my mid-20s. I'll just tell you that's about 30 years, and I'm not going to say how old I am. But yeah, I love entrepreneurship. I love meeting people. I love building things. It's kind of what I do, and extremely creative. My background's in health and wellness, and building companies and helping other people build theirs. That's me. A little bit about me.
Very nice. And Caroline, can you do the same?
Oh, so, looks like Caroline
did myself. Yes, so I'm a mother of 3 kids, 4 dogs. Well, actually, I'm a mother of 3 dogs, and one is my grand dog. So we don't do grandkids here. We do grand dogs. I've been in business my whole life, basically. I was into the corporate world, switched into nonprofit organizations at some point, and then decided to start my own business. So I'm not the same age as Deb, but I still have a lot of experience.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining today. So the two of you, why do I have the two of you? What brought the two of you together?
Oh, Caroline's really good at sharing the story, so I'm going to let her take it.
What brought us together? Faith, I guess. So we are part of the same company organization, and at some point we were both going on to a marketing tour, and I had heard of Deb Drummond because she was at the top of the company where we're at, and very full of awards and everything. So it was very she was very well known. I just made my way there because I guess fate again, someone moved out of the marketing tour, so I ended up there. So we met in Australia. Mm-hmm. We're both from Canada. I'm East Coast, she's West Coast, and we met in Australia, and we were roommates. So we basically did 13 hotels, 11 flights. We traveled Australia in a way that was very amateur. So instead of planning the trip properly, we were going from one end to Australia to the other end to the other end. So it was really a show, but it was super interesting. But basically, we were 6 women traveling together for 6 weeks. So you get to know someone very well, especially when you share the bedroom. So I got to know the real Deb Drummond, and then we just really connected like right away. I guess we're very similar, and at the same time we're polar opposites. But I guess she's my soul sister.
That's awesome. I guess in that time, you'd either know if you were that amount of time and that amount of travel, you'd know there's a fit.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
See the other one having her fits, it's a time.
Awesome. Now so you both have taken this. So the relationship is obviously friendship. You're doing business together. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the business itself?
Sure. I'll take this one. It's interesting when Caroline talks, and I was thinking about it this morning, right? About what makes a good partnership. So even though when we met in Australia, we were doing a marketing tour, we were building 2 separate organizations, and not by nature would 2 people support each other's business if they weren't financially benefiting in the structure of that company. I mean, yes, people help each other, but not to the degree that we were really helping each other. And I thought about that. I mean, we came back from that marketing tour knowing each other better than we ever had. And then we continued to choose to work together in a different capacity. So yes, we were building 2 organizations. We brought those together. And then we decided to work together for the last, I don't know, has it been 2 years or 3 years in a different capacity, building each other's businesses more in a administration way, more in a strategy way, very different. Just we kind of did our own thing. And I think what happens and how we've decided to do what we're doing now, which is the True That show, is that there's a great synergy. I think when people go into business together, a lot of the times they're here or they're friends. I mean, I did that at one point in my life. You're friends, and you think because you have a friendship that you can have success in business. And what I think is the reason why we work so well is that we were friends. We chose to do a business together. We worked together in a capacity where there wasn't so much risk if one of us didn't really kind of gig with each other. And what we did, and I think in the last couple of years, is learn how to throw the ball of power. You're going to do that. Okay, I may not 100% agree, but I trust that you know what you're doing. And this ball kind of goes back and forth. We don't necessarily always agree, but we have the same values. Does that make sense? And so I was thinking about that this morning. How have we been so successful, and how did this kind of come together? I think because we know when someone, like, I know when she's like, okay, she really, like, she wants that. I'm like, it's not that important to me because I know that she was really good in these decisions, that she's going to be good in this one. So I think it's the dance that we've done over the course of the years that gives us kind of not the courage, but the momentum. And I think, like Caroline said, it was kind of a divine, I think about that. I said to her 2 years ago, I'm like, I think we're going to be on stage together. We're going to do something that really, and she's like, she probably was like, oh yeah, there she goes. Right. I'm kind of a bit of a creative person. And she was like, that's a great, yes. Yeah. That's a great idea in her head. She's like, woohoo. Okay. So, and then, so here we are, right? So here we are. I think it's the dance between us. And I think it's the differences and the respect of the differences that actually is making us successful with the same values instead of just being the same people. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully it does. Does that make sense to you? I was thinking about it this morning.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think also, like, how we decided to start the True That show is that we've done thousands of presentations together, and I have a little sarcastic side. Deb has a little, I don't even know which word to put on, but she takes it well. She takes it that she's a little, bothered by it, but she moves on very easily. So we started to banter a lot in our presentations. And then it was business presentations, actually, like, serious. And but we always had a bit of humor and wit. And then people started asking us, like, did you guys record this business presentation? Because I want to send it to a friend. And we were like, okay, for the business or for both. It was just like so interesting to listen to. And we've had those comments like quite a bit in the last year. So we've decided to start that show. That's
Right. So I think that maybe leads to my next question. You talked about collaboration, talked about partnership, leaving a little space for each other. If you were the exact same person, you maybe would bump into each other more, but leaving that space maybe helps you, but having a common goal to high level. And so that led to the creation of the podcast. Can you talk about the evolution to get to that podcast and what that's about?
Oh, okay. We could probably both answer this. I'll just answer a little and then pass it over to her. And she is right. She's like, I'm sarcastic. I'm like, okay, some people call it sarcasm. Some people call it mean. I don't know. But what led to the show? You know what? I think that's where the values comes in. Both of us are really big advocates. If you take a look at Caroline's corporate background, where she went into a nonprofit of a very rare cancer and helped take that to, fundraising of millions of dollars. She's very brilliant in her business. I think I have, owned my accolades in mine. So I think we both know that each other has ability. And that's where we come together on our morals and values that has created the True That show, because that's why we use the word lifepreneurship, because we have a huge level of respect for people that step out of the box. We have a huge level of respect that people aren't scared to be themselves. We have a huge level of respect for people that have overcome adversity. We have a huge level of respect for people that are brave. And, you know, I love, like, one of the books that Caroline sent me a couple of years ago. I don't know if it was just one of her impromptu gifts because, you know, she's a great friend that way. I have a beautiful new silk pillowcase, but it was a book called She, and I have it in my living room. And it's this beautiful book that was put together, I believe, by Kate Spade. And it's all these really cool women in history that people don't necessarily really know. And our show is not just about obviously interviewing women, but it was just very value-based around these people that made a difference. And I think one of the reasons why we both connected in this other company is because their formula or their mandate for success, which is really high-level success, was based on the principles of making people better. And what I think that Caroline and I want to do is we do that every day. And to be able to spotlight someone that not necessarily may be spotlight, you know, may not have the spotlight on them, but help raise them to the top of the cream. I think that's what is really important for me anyways in working with Caroline, is that we work with people, we hear their story, and we want to bring that out so other people can see that and help run with it. Because there's so many superstars in the world, right? There's so many superstars in the world. And so I don't know, that's my answer to that question. How about you?
Yes, well, I think a lot of the same, but I will complete your answer and not repeat. So the idea behind that show was also, I'm very much of a no BS person. Like, I like things raw and the way they are. And that's what I wanted to shine through a podcast. Because, you know, it's easy to look at someone and say, like, oh my goodness, they're so successful, they've built this business, or they've made that amount of money, or whatever. But I truly know, and I think that every entrepreneur knows, that when you go to that kind of success, when it's big enough to be recognized, it's because you went through a lot of hoops and a lot of obstacles, and you probably failed quite a few times, and you probably had your moments that you were crying in your pillow or whatever, how you manage your stress. But you know, there's no success that is an overnight success. And I know that quite often people will look at it and think, like, oh my goodness, they went from this to this, and I can do the same thing. But what we want to bring out in Lifepreneurship is that there's a bunch of different kind of successes, and we want to highlight how did the person get there. We want to highlight the real person behind the successful person, like the human. Like I was telling Deb, you know, everyone wears different hats. You know, if you have kids, you wear the hat of a parent, usually the hat of a spouse, the hat of this, the hat of a business person. So that's all the same person. And quite often when we listen to stories, we only have that one hat of the successful person. But that person is also, you know, the parent, the this, the that, the that. So that's what I really want to highlight, because for me, I'm really attracted to authenticity. Like, I'm really attracted to what I can relate to. And I know that I'm human, and I know that I have weaknesses, but you know, there's a way of bringing those weaknesses to turn them into strengths and see them, that they can go to a level of success. But that's really by highlighting everything, not just the good. It's highlighting the real people. Not that I want to bring out the bad of people, that's not that at all, but you know, I truly believe that when you shine on, you know, like I was saying, the true person and the authentic person, you show something that is more real. Does this make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think authentic definitely, I guess going back to as an entrepreneur, right? We all know, having been through an entrepreneurial journey, any entrepreneur I talk to, it's never a straight line. They didn't just arrive. There's so many things that have gone on. And to your point, Carolyn, like, everybody's world is different, the way they look at things, where they've come from, where they're going to. And I think that really will, impacts how whatever output they're looking to achieve or where they're going. You call it true that, right? So you just really get into the raw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You're digging kind of another layer deeper, right? And you call it the True That Show, and then you talk about lifepreneurs. I think you maybe talked about it a bit. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that term, lifepreneurship or lifepreneur? Not sure who wants to take that.
Yeah, I can, we'll toss it back over. So, I mean, from a lifepreneurship, we were sharing a little bit about that earlier before the interview, is that the people that come onto our show are not necessarily people that, they're not the people that necessarily you would consider successful as an entrepreneur. There's a lot of people, like, you think of entrepreneurs. When I think of entrepreneur, I was listening to some, podcasts this morning of people that are entrepreneurs, that are in the business, that I pull information and take motivation from so I can keep going in my business. So I can talk to my marketing meeting today, and we can talk about, who's going to do the voiceover for this. And in the business, I go and I look for business success. But when I want to be inspired personally, when I want to, I don't necessarily go there. I don't necessarily have to go there. And I think that we're all very drawn. I mean, the world has opened up in terms of media, right? And you look at the millions of viewers that people have, and we tend to follow people that are really successful in business. And that's fantastic. But also a lifepreneur is someone like we talked about earlier, being in Canada. One of the first ones that popped through my head was Terry Fox. Now, Terry Fox had a massive amount of following because he was doing something that other people may not have done, may have thought of done, but we watched the struggle that Caroline talks about that's usually behind the veil, right? Like when she talks about crying at her pillows or whatever it is that we do to deal with the stress. And so entrepreneurs tend to have not two lives where they have their internal process and then they show the success of that is what people see. And I think lifepreneurs have that as well. There's something that they've done that's really successful, or there's something that they want, or they're phenomenal at helping people, like one of our interviews, helping people in the area of personal development. They're just a personal development success story that's yet to be told. So they have a skill or a gift that helps people get through certain things personally that someone doesn't see as an entrepreneur necessarily. They're not raking in the dollars as an entrepreneur. They're helping people heal in this area of their life, whether it converts to financial success or not. And so I think we've kind of opened like that paradigm. We're like, okay, we're not just going to talk to entrepreneurs, we're going to talk to lifepreneurs, and we're going to highlight, because someone listening may want to know how to help out with their child in this area with this condition, and has nothing to do with the bottom dollar. So that for me is a lifepreneur. It's someone who's making a difference, who's got something to share, no matter what, whether they've got a book or a podcast or a business, right? To validate what it is that they're doing. So that's kind of my definition of a lifepreneur, I think. I don't know if you want to add to that or.
Yes, well, what I would add is for me, lifepreneur is very similar to what Deb just said, but it really isn't necessarily attached to financial success, but it is attached to successes. And you know what, I think that when we look at it, the biggest lifepreneur role that there is being a parent. You have a kid, they don't give you a how to do book, and then you go through it, and it's 18 years at least. Well, now in our days it's like 42 years, but you have to weave your way through it. And even if you decide to read books, there's so many different school of thoughts and everything. So you have to become your own person in how you will decide to basically take on that project. So I'm taking one basic thing, but that can be in everything else. And like, I met so many people. I was asked not too long ago, like, who's my hero? And I had a hard time pointing in to like, this is my hero, because for me, my heroes are everyday people. So they're everyday people that will make their life work. And for me, someone who succeeds, it's not only someone who has financial success, it's also someone who will be able to be happy, feel good in their skin, and feel like they're accomplished. So that's a part as well that we want to bring out in people, because there's different definition of success and there's different level of successes, but we want to bring really people that will be on every single level. So it's not all the Warren Buffetts or whatever that will be on our show. It's more like the Caroline Blanchards that I had a very interesting life path, very much up and down, but through it all, the line has been going up and up and up. And I know Deb's life experience as well. So we started as young. Like I started working, I was, I don't know, 8. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's lifepreneurship. It's like getting through life and, you know, highlighting a bunch of different ways of how did you get through what.
Yeah.
That's so good. And, I think that it's important for people to hear those stories because they may be where they are. And I guess my next question is related to like, who will your ideal audience be? Is it I guess it is for myself as an entrepreneur, it's always great to hear stories. It just kind of validates that, like whenever a lot of times for me, I get stuck on myself. And, when I hear other people's stories, like everyone else has a different story, right? But everyone's capable too, right? Who would you say you're really pointing your audience would be, your niche is?
You know what? Sorry, Deb, my turn. No.
Oh, yeah, you're on. I know. That's why I went.
So no, I think that our ideal audience, if I can summarize it in one sentence, is someone who wants to be the best version of themselves. I met personal development about 10 years ago, and I made a conscious decision of working between what's between here and there, because exactly like you just said, you get stuck with yourself. We all get there. It's what's between our ears. So for me, someone who wants to better themselves is someone that will be our target audience, because you will go get nuggets of gold here and there. And I truly believe too that when we listen to podcasts, we always have something to go get out of it. Maybe a big piece and maybe a small piece, and maybe motivation and maybe just like feeling better in the moment or picking yourself up. But that's all part of wanting to better yourself.
That's great. So what is next? The podcast, is it out? How can people contact you? What's coming up? What are your plans?
Oh, wow. So I think me and Caroline, I think the reason why we have the following that we do is because we're ever evolving. And as this podcast comes to people that know us, they're going to be like, of course you are. Of course you're doing a podcast, right? And it's kind of this, of course you are, of course you are, because our experience together has been evolving. And I think also how we live our lives is fairly intuitive. So we don't think there's a mistake why we hooked up with you. I don't think there was a mistake why I connected to a woman yesterday on Facebook that we had this conversation. It's like, we were like, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. So we know that our tribe will kind of follow and be drawn to us. But what's next is really, I think, to really, really get into to just build on this podcast, right? So I mean, they can, people can follow us at that True That show. We'll put our, information. I'll let Caroline do that's like, that's her forte. But what's next for us is I truly believe, like I said 2 years ago, not only are people going to love the show and come on the show, and we're going to interview, much like you do, lots of interviews. But I definitely see me and this woman on stage, not just in the business that we are now. We both are accredited in being able to talk about business and success of that. But I really believe that we're going to be on stage talking about a lot of different things, everything from how I think Caroline started when she was young to how I started. And I think there's going to be a lot of people will see us more as empowerment speakers. So there'll be a lot of that. I have no doubt that there's going to be a book at some point, right? And so I think our relationship's just going to compound and evolve in whatever medium people want to hear it in. Right now, it's podcasts. Right now it's podcasts. So do you want to tell people how to follow and get in touch with? She's so good at that.
Yes, but I think it's also just added, but basically it's going to be the throughthatshow.com. And it's a True That Show on YouTube as well. And our podcast will be on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. So it's going to be very widely spread. And I just want to add that, when I say we're polar opposites, I live in the moment. My philosophy is one day at a time. So that's why when you ask like what's in the future, I pointed to Deb, because she's been planning everything for the last 3 years, like on, okay, we're going to do this. And I'm just like always like, okay, I go one day at a time, and now she has all those projects. And what I find so exciting is that, you know, I just follow her lead. And I've learned one big thing from Steve Jobs, and I realized I did that my whole life. When you don't know if you want it or not, or if you can or not, just say yes and figure it out. And honestly, that's been one of my best success tools in life. And I'm so happy I'm like that, because with Deb, like, she's a big creator, dreamer, but she's not only a dreamer, she actually makes it happen, but she has big projects. So if I would be more of the scary type, I would say no, but I just say yes, and then she goes, she makes it happen, and then we just keep on growing. I think it's amazing, but you know, the book is news to me too.
Sounds
Well, you know, I've
incredible.
been talking to publishers for the last 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, well, this isn't a mistake. Why are publishers contacting me? Why are book? I'm like, sometimes the universe speaks to you, and sometimes you speak to the universe. I think that's really the truth. I think I've been, you know, there's been some stuff show up lately, and I'm like, okay, just keep showing me the signs. Just keep showing me the signs. Just like, and that's what I'm intuitive enough, or I'm practiced enough in my intuitive to know when to just stop talking and let the universe keep giving me information. And then when it's time to act on that. So I think that just comes from being a beat up entrepreneur for a while.
Awesome. Well, this is great. I think I'm witnessing lifepreneurship on this interview in itself, right? It's just kind of, as we go through the questions, it's all evolving. So I appreciate you both sharing your story, talking about your podcast and how you're going to inspire other people, other lifepreneurs, and let that light shine on people who are elevating the level of others out there. So thank you very much.
No, absolutely. Thanks for having us on. Thanks for having us on. Great. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.